start? Okay, there it finally started. Okay, as we look forward in this week, forward in time, not maybe looking forward to the class, we will start your project that we work on. It's called the Arch, okay? So you won't have any idea how to do that until we actually show you how to do that. That's where, from last week, we said you get to play maybe engineer and architect and whatever it is that you could say that we're going to make, we're going to break and destroy, okay? And all in the name of science, we hope, okay? So your vocabulary will be formally assigned tomorrow, which will be due on Friday, okay? So keep that in mind. Now, it is possible that typically we say that when vocabulary is due, that's when we have evaluation. That did not happen with biology, and that may be, okay, maybe the case with this class as well. Okay, so moving forward then, the main idea behind what it is that we started with, what is your new formula? Okay, so chances are if one person knew it, maybe the rest of us do too. At least that is our goal. Okay, so you say F equals MA. So what is it that the F stands for? Force. Okay, we'll come back to this in a moment. Okay. So we refer to this as Newton's second law because the first one, okay, I want you to think about this for anyone who follows racing. And another aspect that is everyone sitting where they feel comfortable? Because I think if you feel comfortable where you're sitting, you're probably going to learn more in that regards. But maybe some of you would rather be relocated or not. In other words, do we need a seating chart in here? No. Okay. There's perhaps no reason that would lead us to that because one of the things we always say, okay, we're in high school now. And of course, I think, how many of you agree that so far the expectations between middle school and high school are a little more? Nobody? Or is it about the same? Okay. It's about the same? Okay. And one of the things that we see here, there's more than one type of friction. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. We were talking about Newton's laws, weren't we? And we'll get back to these frictions like we just said. I don't follow racing or NASCAR, but maybe some of you do. Okay? If you are watching a race for, what is it, the Winston Cup Series, is that maybe one type of race, and then NASCAR is the other. But regardless, when you look at these racetracks, is it just flat in design like a track that you run around in the spring? No. Is there a difference between the two besides the length?
It has a slope sort of.
Slope or embankment? What makes more sense to yourself? When you say slope, you're not wrong.
Embankment, probably.
Okay. Why is it not flat then?
Because you'd have to slow down a lot more to go around there.
Right, because what is the speed that we're possibly referring to some of these vehicles when we're talking about NASCAR? Is it 50 miles an hour, 60 miles an hour? Is it 100 miles an hour? Is it maybe 140 miles an hour? What do you think?
I think they're like around almost 200.
200, perhaps.
And then the Formula Ones are even faster than that.
Okay. That's the IndyCar series, maybe. Okay. But regardless, like what you had said earlier, as that car, race car, is coming around a slope or embankment, if that is flat, like this two-dimensional part here, once that tries to make that turn, what's going to happen? It's going to fly right off the racetrack. And oddly enough, Disney's, is it Pixar movie Cars? Does that sound familiar?
Doc Hudson, yes.
One of the things he says is you have to turn your steering wheel to the right to go left. Has anyone seen the movie Cars? Okay, so what happens is, okay, you're coming around this embankment here, and if you just turn your vehicle to the left, what's the tail of that vehicle going to do? It's going to spin out of control. So you have to turn your wheels to the right so that you can make it around that embankment. What did you say the character, Doc, what?
Gosh, I just watched it on this weekend. Doc Hudson is, what's his noodle's favorite driver, and he had a big accident.
Okay.
'Cause
So,
he didn't do that, yeah.
so what's the name of this, is it the red car? I can't even,
Lightning, yes.
McQuaid? Speed?
Lightning McQueen.
McQueen. Lightning McQueen? I want to say McQuaid. McQueen. So what is it that as he keeps going around that turn, he keeps turning his wheels to the left. He keeps spinning out. So the advice he gets, you have to turn to the right to go left. That's because all the forces of inertia are trying to push that off of the racetrack. But as you steer into that by turning your wheels to the right, it's going to allow you to be able to make that turn. Okay, that is Newton's first law, deals with inertia. Okay, the second law then deals with accelerations and gravitation. That's why we see this. Gravity, as measured in the vertical component, has a value of what? 9.8. Now, you just didn't pull that number out of the air, did you? So why did you know it was 9.8?
Because that's gravity's acceleration.
True, and perhaps we said that in class, right? Yeah. Okay. Because as we continue moving forward with these problems, when we ask for understanding, if we keep seeing thumbs up and nodding our head yes, what does that tell us? That you understand it. Okay? Now, I also understand that some comments that we hear is it makes sense when we work on it together as a group. But then when you're working on this on your own, oh my gosh, we kind of struggle with that a little bit. But that's something that we have to be able to work on to overcome. And that's where, with the exception of sitting up against the wall, okay, if you're sitting towards the middle, should you fall down, look to the left. Your left, not my, that's why I know this is my right. Look to your left, look to your right, except for if you're sitting up against the wall. Someone there is there to pick you up, dust you off, and keep moving forward. Okay, so then if we have a first law for Newton, a second law of Newton, is that where it stops? Or is there a third law? Only two? Maybe flip your page over.
Oh, yep, there's a third law.
There's a third law, okay? And that would be, did we ever talk about pheasant hunting in here? Okay, let's say 20 gauge or 12 gauge. Just pick a type of 20 gauge, okay? So whether it's a 20 gauge or a 12, okay, as you have that butt stock holding that, is there going to be a gap between here and your shoulder? Why not? What happens if you don't put that right on your shoulder? So if there's a little bit of a gap there, you pull the trigger, what's the gun going to do? It's going to kick back right into your shoulder, okay? because there is a force that is propelling that forward. So the opposite direction is pushing that back into your shoulder. So it's going to kick back into your shoulder like this. But if you hold it tight, yeah, it might move a little bit, but it's not going to hurt as much. Because that's why I think we said you make that mistake once, you're probably not going to do that again. To where you have a little bit of a gap there and fires back into your shoulder. Okay. So different types of friction. Okay? As we see here, this is just your general general definition that there's two surfaces or two forces going in opposite direction. Can we change that? Yes, of course we can. Like for instance, this desk, okay? It looks like it sits right on the floor, but if we want to change how things are moved to make it easier, what might you put under this desk? Put wheels under there. Change that sliding friction to rolling friction. And if we have what we call static friction, that means there is no net movement applied because it's just not great enough to break that. And that's what we mean here. Results in no net movement when we talk about static friction. So then in a couple of moments, when we turned that overhead on, you had seen what was up here. It comes from a source about the 7 ancient wonders of the world. And that's where that story problem perhaps comes from. Because as we're talking about this, again, if we're referring to static friction, okay, what happens to that object? It is not what? Like for instance, see, I can lean up against this desk and it's not doing anything, even though we're placing a force on it. But it's not moving because it's got static friction to it. Once you apply enough force, you change that to sliding friction, okay? Even like your desks. They just sit there and you can lean up against your desk and it won't move. That's still static friction. But once there's enough applied, it will slide across the floor. Between two surfaces, that is sliding friction. Once you have enough force applied, okay, you will overcome the static friction. And to make things much easier, put wheels on it. Now you have rolling friction. Okay. Does everyone have this content that wants it? Because we continue with rolling friction, but I want to get going on this story problem here as well. Does everyone have this that wants it? Yes. Okay. So I'm just going to hit pause here for a moment. So the idea behind that was just to give you somewhat of an idea of what we're talking about between static friction and sliding friction. Okay. So with that, once you've read the problem, what is the next thing that we should do? Okay, so what do we know in this problem? Okay, well, and are we going to use a new formula, an old formula, or both? We're actually going to use both. Okay, So what information do we know that we need to use? Because if we want to solve for a force, it says how much force, okay? So what do we need to know to solve for force? Okay, so upon doing this, now write down the content that we know. What do we know in this problem? Okay? Do we know anything else? Do we know anything else? Okay, I know we said another variable, but I heard this one first. What about the mass? Okay. Anything else that we know? Someone had said it. Okay. Which is? Okay, so you correctly said we're solving for this. Well, we've got the mass according to our setup over there, but we don't have our acceleration. But do we have enough information to solve for that? Yes, we do. Okay. Rather than listening to me, who feels they have a really good understanding of this? You want to play teach? Oh, okay. So what I have to do, I'll leave the microphone on, and then I will just turn the camera down and we'll put it back up again. Maybe we need to do this. Maybe if I just set this on there, maybe that'll stay. Okay, the floor is yours.
Okay, so we have to do our acceleration formula, which is n equals
2.71 That's fine.
oh. So said, what is it?
2.71 minus 0.
Over what?
0.1.
So then, wait, you don't even need to put that over 1.
Just divide
Yeah, so do 2.71 divided by 0.
14.26.
426.
14.26.
14.26 equals A.
And then that times mass.
So then, for the F formula, it's the mass, which is
2,400.
times 14.26. So then what does that equal?
34,224.
34?
34,244.
244? But I don't know the label for it.
Okay, that's fine.
N?
Is it?
Why are you right?
Because in my notes it says 4 equals n.
Right,
What
so
does N stand
forces
for?
are measured in newtons. That's right.
What is it measured in?
Newtons.
Newton.
Okay. All right, so moving forward then. So as you can tell, that's not my handwriting on there. So Is there any other type of problem that we could solve for? There is. In other words, as that object is moving forward, okay, if you have a mass and you have a velocity, what can you solve for? Momentum, that's right. Although you're probably not going to have much momentum going up a hill, it would have to be going actually down the hill. One of the things that you may have noticed is, let's say for every one large block, let's say there were 20 individuals pulling, in other words, 10 total teams. So if there were 8 teams of people on there, in other words, 16 people pulling, is it a coincidence that it's up to 20? Because if you needed 20 and there are only 16 people to pull, what might that block do? Say that again. Okay, possibly fall back, but maybe it's not going to move. What type of friction is that when no movement occurs? What did we say today? Static friction. So what did those Egyptians do to move those large blocks of sandstone? No, well, they overcame static friction by putting it what? Put it on a sled. So rather than having that block drag across the ground, okay, they actually put it on a sled. So if 16 people wasn't enough, you still have static friction. But now you put 8 more people on there, okay? Excuse me, 4 more people on there. Now that might be enough force to actually change that static friction to sliding, okay? I just thought it would make more sense to see that depiction rather than trying to describe what static friction is and what sliding friction, okay? Now, they did not have this up on an axle or any type of wheels, for instance, probably because it hadn't been built yet or discovered yet. Now, higher above, they might have put some round types of logs under there. That would be a lot easier, but probably just wasn't very conducive to do that from a quarry. Okay, so we're looking at problems that now involve forces, which means we're still going to be solving for accelerations. We're still going to be solving for masses and, of course, forces, still momentums, and other objects like that. So very quickly, what we could do is perhaps change this here. So front row, is there any questions over this? All right, let me start again. Are we on the bus? That's a better way. Yes, 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 yes. Okay, second row. Okay. Third row. Okay. All right. So everyone's doing this and we're nodding our heads yes. So that must mean that we understand this. Okay. So that's a good question. What happens if that is rolling backwards? Maybe they're going up a slope and then all of a sudden the ropes break and starts going backwards. Although that's probably not going to happen. There's going to be a lot of friction. But we're going to say that it does go backwards. Since we got a little bit of time here. Yeah, I'll just pause this for just a moment. Okay, so one of the things here, what are we asking for instead? Momentum. We're asking for a momentum, okay? So, like we said, maybe we have this large block that's moving up a hill. All of a sudden, the ropes break and down it goes. Okay? So, it hits a wall with this much force, because forces are measured in newtons. Says, what was the momentum if the final velocity was 18 meters per second and began at 1.15 meters per second in 4 seconds? Okay? Possibly, yes. Okay? So, some of you have the content wrote down. You've read the problem. What is the next thing that we should do? Okay. I print, that's why I don't have a copy. I just sent it to the printer. I will get you one. Yes. Which variable is that? Oh, okay. This one here.
Wait, we define the momentum too? How do you find momentum?
Anybody have an answer? Okay, now I would presume that you're trying to help him out, correct? So what are we doing in this problem? You don't even have anything that we wrote down. Just seeing if anybody does anybody have an answer?
Yes.
Okay, and that is what?
A big number.
6175.77.
But that's probably just the mass, right?
I found the momentum.
And that is what?
11116.86.
Okay, so there's probably just a little bit in the rounding. Okay. As you can see, these problems, they get to be more difficult. And if you, we're here to help. We're trying to make this as simple for you as possible. Okay, Front row, are we on the bus? You say yes, 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 yes. Second row, yes. Yes, yes, yes. Second row. Third row. Okay. So we do have some people who are perhaps honest and say, I might not get this. So what is it that you need to do that's your responsibility? Watch the Science Channel, because you can go back and watch what we just did. So in short, we needed to find the acceleration. Okay? That acceleration is approximately, we're not done yet, people. Okay? Is approximately 4.23. You divide that into 26,000, that gives you a mass of 6146 approximately. It's the rounding that we're not getting the same answer. 6146 times 18, which was your final velocity, gives you approximately 110,628. Okay, if you are lost, please ask for help. That's all we can do. We'll catch up to you next time.